Good morning. It is August 25th at 5:30 in the morning, and I'm back with you for another session on what is simply called expansion, which I define as the incremental release of muscular tension to achieve a deep state of physical, emotional, and mental calm. That's all we're going to do now is expand. We're going to take a half an hour, and we're going to do pretty much the opposite of what we do 90% of our day. Do, create, think, form words, sentences, thoughts, build things, write things. That's contraction. That's the opposite of what we're going to do now for the next half hour, which is expand. And we do that through a series of very simple techniques. We start with the fundamentals, the preliminaries, which is deep breaths, stillness, and silence. When in doubt, deep breaths, stillness, and silence. That is the simplest way to expand. Why? Deep breaths are expansive by nature. When you are contracted, you tend to hold your breath. That's a contraction. When we take a deep breath, you tend to expand. Stillness and silence, because stillness is the opposite of action. Action is what we do all day. That's doing. So we're still. And finally, silence, because the formation of words, thoughts, ideas is a contraction. So again, we're doing the opposite. We're moving from a contracted state to an expanded state to achieve balance. That's all we're going to do. I like to mention briefly these ideas are based on the writings of a man named Thaddeus Golas, Golas, who wrote a book called The Lazy Man's Guide to Enlightenment. If you pick it up, it's a very short, simple book, but it expounds on these basic premises that the universe is made up of two basic forces: contraction, squeeze your hands together, see what that feels like, and expansion, release. So we're going to move in these sessions to a more expanded state because we tend to become overly contracted. Let's start. We start every session with breaths, stillness, and silence. Take 3 deep breaths followed by 15 seconds of absolute stillness and silence. Don't move a muscle, but continue to breathe. We deliberately become almost frozen, just to call our attention to the fact that we have been in constant motion and activity, and we're taking a moment to move in the opposite direction. 3 deep breaths, 15 seconds, stillness and silence. Here we go. And 3. 15 seconds, absolute stillness and silence, but continue to breathe. Another deep breath. So that's it. You've already begun to expand. It's that simple. And take a moment and just kind of tune into your body and see how that may or may not have changed you. These are very subtle changes. I say the incremental release of muscular tension, and we'll get to the muscular release in a minute, because what's important is that you value and validate even the smallest shift towards expansion. Because once you've started to expand, you've stopped contracting. You can't do both at the same time. So it's important, because a lot of times with techniques like this, they're very daunting. Oh, I can't do it. I can't get there. We'll start with a very simple change, a simple expansion, a very small amount. That's all you need. And you build on that. And you keep expanding and expanding and expanding. And we're trying to train ourselves to value expansion. We value contraction, doing, thinking, worrying, writing. We value activity. But we've forgotten the value of the opposite: stillness, silence, nothingness, emptiness, calm, peace, joy. So now we do 5 deep breaths, followed by 30 seconds of absolute stillness and silence. Here we go. Last one. 30 seconds, absolute stillness and silence. Don't move a muscle, but continue to breathe. Deep breath. And again, note what changes, if any, you feel. For example, I feel quieter, more still. My mind has cleared to a degree. I feel more comfortable in the chair. You know, I've been doing this for years, for thousands of hours. And even so, when I start a session, I'm always amazed at how relaxed and still and quiet I was. But when I actually take the deep breaths, take the moments of stillness and silence, I go, wow. Only when I stopped to do that was I aware of how contracted I was, really contracted. So we're very good at fooling ourselves. We're very good at telling ourselves that we're fine, we're not overly contracted, and I can watch another hour of TV or go on the internet for another hour, it's fine, I'm just relaxing. But we're not. In fact, what we're doing is continuing to contract, find ways to contract. It's our go-to solution to everything. Watch TV, go on the internet, any millions of things, activities that we feel will make us feel better, which they might. But what we're forgetting is there's a tool available to us, which is the opposite of all of those things, all of those contractions, and that is expansion, to do nothing, to be silent, to be empty. So we're trying to build a consciousness of that. So now we continue with this preliminary phase, and we're going to do 7 deep breaths, followed by a full minute of absolute stillness and silence. And you could say we're basically extending our range. We contract and we expand throughout the day. We tend to contract more, so now we're extending our expansive range. We're what I call lengthening our dynamic range, because a successful, in my opinion, person is one who contracts very effectively, writes, dances, thinks, makes business deals, builds skyscrapers. These are contractions, they're excellent, but is also equally adept at expansion, letting go, doing nothing, being silent, being empty. So we're very good at one thing. We're trying to balance ourselves by being good at expansion as well. We're studying that process and familiarizing ourselves with it and building into our consciousness that it is a valid step to take to balance our lives. We tend to think of doing nothing as a crime. Do nothing? No, you have to do something. Think nothing? Well, how can I solve my problems? But it is, in fact, a very effective means of solving problems, going to a place of emptiness where your mind is clear. 7 deep breaths followed by a full minute of absolute stillness and silence. And again, try to be as absolutely still as you can. It's something we rarely do. So you'll feel that difference. This is something I rarely do. It feels different, and it will literally change your very sense of being. 7 deep breaths, full minute, stillness and silence. Absolute stillness, but continue to breathe. Here we go. 7. Last one. 60 seconds of absolute stillness and silence, but continue to breathe. Deep breath. And again, note whatever changes you may have felt during that period of stillness and silence, or what you were feeling now. An interesting thing that always happens to me, what just happened, is I was counting, and then suddenly I forgot to count. It suddenly didn't matter. I could have sat for another 5 minutes. I came to a place where all these structures, all these plans, all these techniques, which are contractions, which I built, dissipated and went away. These sessions are, in an obvious sense, a contraction. It's projecting ideas and thoughts and sharing them. Well, that's valid. But understand that when you are completely expanded, You have no thoughts, you have no concerns, there is no time, which is a contraction. You're just existing, you're in the moment, in the now. So if you find yourself drifting, that's an excellent sign. You're letting go of all the structures and frameworks and templates you put into place through which to guide your life. The wonderful thing about being completely expanded is you no longer worry about plans or structures or techniques. All of this goes away. Which is a contradiction of sorts, because if I was to really be successful at expansion, I wouldn't call it anything. I wouldn't do these sessions. I wouldn't even need to practice that technique. So that's the goal. So in a way, I'm building in my own dissipation. At some point, I'll stop doing these sessions because they won't seem necessary. I'll be in a place where I'm content just to be. But in the meantime, this is a useful human way to bring myself into balance. We'll never become completely expanded. We can't. In order to survive as human beings, we must contract. We must build things, do things, earn money, do our jobs, maintain relationships, have thoughts, write ideas. That's to be human. But we do want to achieve balance. We want to have as much expansion, much capacity and ability to expand as we do contraction, so that we are centered and happy. So we've done the preliminary techniques. Now we move on to what I call the nuts and bolts of the technique, which is, as I mentioned earlier, the incremental release of muscular tension. The incremental, small release of muscular tension. Squeeze your hands together, tight. 3, 2, 1, release. Drop your hands to your sides, take a deep breath. So that sense of letting go, releasing, that's expansion. Now we did it here through muscular release. We created a contracted state, and then we made a conscious decision to let go. 3, 2, 1, release. And pay attention, as always, to how that felt. Contraction is good. That's strength. That's how you hold on to ideas, thoughts, people, things, jobs. It's great. Strength is good. But it's also valuable to do the opposite. 3, 2, 1, release. Let go. That takes you to a place of openness and emptiness and calm and clarity. So we use the muscular release. Very small amounts. We build on it, because you can't contract and expand at the same time. Any small amount of expansion moves you into a more expanded state. So we build on that, and we do it by moving through the body and releasing muscular tension in what I call muscular zones. Now you can do this for yourself in any way you like. You can start anywhere. This is my technique, and customize it as you wish, as you will. Of course, I know what this feels like to me. I have no idea what this feels like for you. I have a general sense of the value of expansion, but for you in particular, see how it feels for you. It's very important. This is what you were given. So you want to get good at finding ways to expand through your process. But this is what I do. We start with the face. On the count of 3, you're going to release all the muscular tension you can in your face. So you're building a consciousness of the difference between muscular contraction and muscular expansion or release. 3, 2, 1, and release. On my face just sagged. I let go of all the muscular tension I could consciously let go of. And you'll get better and better at this. You may find it strange to release muscular tension. You may be like I frequently am, so contracted, so set in your approach to life and your state of being that you find it inconceivable to let go. How will I survive if I let go of my muscular tension? It's what's holding me together. So you may find all sorts of sort of scary sensations or thoughts when this happens, because it tends to feel vulnerable when you let go. You're letting down your guard. The face, 3, 2, 1, and release. So again, we're just building a consciousness of what it feels like to release muscular tension. That's it. From this to this, from this to this, from this to this. The face, 3, 2, 1, and release. And I always say, it's good to start with the face. If you're unfamiliar with this sensation, this technique, you look in the mirror and you can actually see the muscular release. 3, 2, 1, and see that? You're kind of dumb. I've let all the muscles sag. I've turned off the power to those muscles which was causing them to contract. And a muscle can only move or do something, affect some change, if it contracts. Muscles can only contract or release, contract or expand. That's why there's such a perfect metaphor for this process. If you can release a muscle, you set the expansive process in motion. Zone 2 is the top of the head. 3, 2, 1, and release. And in any of these zones, if you go, I have no idea how to release the tension in my X, Y, or Z, just think about it. You can always go back to this. 3, 2, 1, release. That's what it feels like. Now try to do that here at the top of your head. 3, 2, 1, and release. And feel that sagging. The snap is the turning off of power to those muscles, which allows them to let go, go slack. 3, 2, 1, release. That's all you're doing. That's all expansive. That's all this expansive process is letting go of muscular tension. That's all it is. Deep breath, stillness and silence, muscular release. Done. No book to read, no mantra to memorize, nothing. And people say, well, this is meditation. Well, I say, not really. Not as I've studied meditation. This is strictly muscular release. So if you find yourself agitated, I can't calm down, or how can I sit and meditate? My thoughts are so crazy. Well, the reason I love this technique is no matter what's happening, no matter what you're thinking, release muscular tension. And you go, well, that's not going to work. Maybe for 5 minutes you might not feel a difference, but in 10 minutes you might. In 15 minutes you'll feel more. Concentrate on releasing muscular tension. Start with deep breaths if you like. Sit in stillness and silence. Release muscular tension. Thoughts are a contracted process. You can't think your way out of a thinking problem. And that's the trap I always fall into. If I am having obsessive thoughts, well, I think more to try to figure out what to do about those obsessive thoughts, but then you're adding a contraction to a contraction. You want to do the opposite. So it's very difficult to quiet our mind, to expand, you might say, that muscle, the muscle of the brain. So we start with other muscles. One muscle influences the other. So if you can't quiet your mind, just relax your muscles somewhere in your body. Start somewhere, anywhere. Do this, 3, 2, 1, release. Face, 3, 2, 1, release. Top of the head, 3, 2, 1, release. And just do that for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and just keep doing it. And you will find yourself being nudged into a more expanded state. And your mind, which is a muscle of sorts, holding on to thoughts, ideas, will also let go of those thoughts and ideas, and they will simply float away, and you'll find yourself in a quiet, calm, empty state. Zone 3 is the back of the head, 3, 2, 1, and release. Again, the back of the head, 3, 2, 1, and release. I've been practicing this for years, for thousands of hours. I still have obsessive thoughts. I still get muscular tension, anxiety, fears. I become very contracted frequently, every day, several times a day. That's why I developed this technique. That will probably never change. I'm 68 years old now. I don't think I'm going to change much in the next, hopefully, 20 years. But I can find balance. I can find a way to pull myself back from the brink of extensive contraction into a more expanded state and find balance in my life, clarity, which is why I practice. You don't want to stop contracting. That's how you get things done. Come up with ideas. Build things. Live your life. Work. Do. But you do want to bring yourself into balance so that you don't become overly contracted, which is when we feel bad. We feel anxious. We feel upset. We feel unhappy. We feel confused. We feel obsessive thoughts taking over our life. You don't want that. So this is a way to balance that with expansion. Zone 4 is the neck. Let go of the muscular tension. 3, 2, 1, and release. And again, just feel that slight shift, 3, 2, 1, and I frequently, when I've released a muscle group, feel an impulse to breathe, to take a deep breath. That's because my body has begun to expand. Typically, when you're contracted, you have been holding your breath. You're oxygen deficient. And when your body starts to get the message that we're letting go, it's okay, your body says, great, now's my chance, take a breath. We're moving into an expansive state. Zone 5 is the shoulders, 3, 2, 1, let them drop. And again, the shoulders, 3, 2, 1, just let them drop ever so slightly. Pay close attention to whatever feelings or sensations you have. This is the shift towards expansion. See for yourself what you experience, what you feel as you become more expanded. You may feel frightened by the feelings that come up. You might feel vulnerable, having dropped your muscular guard. You might feel afraid of what's about to happen because you're letting go of the contracted state that you have set up for yourself. The thinking structures, the physical structures you put in play to protect yourself, to face life. You're letting that all go. That might feel strange or uncomfortable. That's good. It means you're shifting. Just keep going. Zone 6, the chest, stomach, front of the waist, 3, 2, 1, and release. And this is an area where we tend to hold a lot of tension because we're protecting ourselves. All this muscular tension, all these holding on to thoughts, ideas, this is our guard. This is our defense mechanism. This is the way we walk out the door and face the world. We are girded for life. We are keeping it together. Excellent. You have to. If you're going to go into battle, you have to be ready until you're overly prepared and you're anxious and it's inhibiting your ability to effectively deal with life because you are overly contracted. That's when you want to bring yourself into balance and expand till you are centered. Chest, stomach, front of the waist, 3, 2, 1, and release. And frequently when you're following this process, you might find an impulse to sit in just stillness. All the compulsions which have led you to believe you need to keep doing, keep talking, keep going are dissipating. Now your body is sending you a message that it's okay just to be. There's nowhere I have to go. There's nothing I have to think or do. I brought myself to an expanded, still, quiet, empty, open place, and that's fantastic. Take that moment. Take that moment. That's the whole idea. Again, these sessions will disappear someday, I'm hoping, because I will feel no need to hold these sessions or create or practice or describe a technique, because I will have found a way to come to a place of stillness and silence where there's really nothing. There's no book, there's no technique, there's no class, there's no philosophy, there's just being. That's it. It's a perfect place. There's no judgment, there's no standards. There's no evaluations, there's no time, there just is you being. Even your sense of you, who you are, your name, what you do for a living, what you did yesterday or what you plan on doing today, just go away. This is why I've always loved visiting churches and temples and Buddhist shrines and things like that, and mosques and so forth. I always find them to be incredible places because this is a place where you come and you leave all of your day, your life behind, and you come to a place and you just experience yourself as a human being with a lot of other people who are trying to get back to that same place. You support each other in that pursuit because on an instinctive level, we know that that's important. So this is no different than any other pursuit of peace. It's just one technique, which works for me, and I share it with you. Hopefully it helps you too. I would be very pleased to hear that. Zone 7, down the back, past the waist, and into the all-important pelvis. 3, 2, 1, and release. And one of the things you're doing with this technique is building an awareness, a self-consciousness of your body. Some people have a higher self-consciousness, others don't. Some people think, I have no idea how to concentrate on what my hand is feeling or my pelvis or my knees are feeling. I have no idea. What are you talking about? Well, this is a way to build that consciousness so that you can literally direct yourself like a conductor. You can direct your body and get it to move in ways you'd like it to move, in this case, into a more expanded state. So if I say your pelvis, you think, what does that mean? Well, just think about the feelings you have in that area, how contracted or clenched you might feel, again, as a typically defense mechanism, and just try to let that go, an incremental amount. 3, 2, 1, and release. And again, 3, 2, 1, and release. You might find certain areas of your body are more sensitive than others that make you feel more uncomfortable to let go of that particular area, because that might be where you in particular, as an individual, hold a lot of your tension. For years I had tons of neck tension and problems because I used to hold my tension there. Now that's changed. I hold it other places now, but just you're investigating that. And typically the places where you feel the most uncomfortable letting go are where you have the most contraction and you really need to focus on the most. As they say, lean into it. Find those areas of fear and vulnerability and really work on those first, because everything else will follow. The pelvis, 3, 2, 1, and release. Take a deep breath. Another deep breath. 15 seconds, stillness and silence. Deep breath. And finally, and my apologies for moving through these zones so quickly, I recommend you take much, much more time with these on your own. But these are the areas that I tend to focus on, and just do it for 5 minutes or a half an hour or an hour, whatever you feel comfortable doing. But the point is to start expanding and see what it does for you. The feet, 3, 2, 1, and release. And again, the feet, 3, 2, 1, and release. A lot of times people say, I don't know how to let go of muscular tension. I say, well, can you, on that count, feel your feet? 3, 2, 1, and feel your feet. Feelings are the result of expansion. When you are holding, you're holding onto your feelings. A lot of times when you're expanding, you'll start to feel emotions and lots of tingling, because when you start to release muscular tension, the feelings are allowed to emerge. So a trick sometimes is to say, well, how do my feet feel? 3, 2, 1, and if you can feel any sensation in your feet or any of these areas, you've probably expanded. You've let go of muscular tension. So these are small, subtle changes that guide your entire being into a more expanded state. So those are the 8 zones. I like to keep these sessions to a half an hour, and we're just about a half an hour now. I move through these quickly, simply as a reminder and a guide, but basically all we're doing in moving ourselves into an expanded state is these few simple techniques: deep breaths, stillness and silence, muscular release. Done. That's it. That's all there is to it. For some people, it's just almost too simple. They go, that can't possibly work. Well, guess what? That thought that says no is a contraction. It's a defense mechanism. So look out for these signs that your body sends you, your body and mind send you, these contractive thoughts, these contractive feelings, and move yourself in the opposite direction, an expanded state. Deep breaths, stillness and silence, muscular release. And see what it does for you. Thanks for visiting. It's simply called Expansion now. I'll repost this session on my Facebook page for the day if anyone came in late and wants to see it from the beginning. I also posted on what's called the scanning page. I used to call it scanning the body for muscular tension, but all we're doing is expanding. But that was spelled SQANNING with a Q. So if you look it up on Facebook, you'll see this session and lots of previous sessions, which are all basically the same. I also have a YouTube channel where I post these, SQANNING also. But if you've seen one session, you've seen them all. The point is, it's less important to watch these sessions than it is to start practicing, start expanding, taking deep breaths, sitting in stillness and silence, letting go of muscular release, and see what it does for you. Thanks a lot. It's been a pleasure. See you next time. Bye-bye.